Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. We had a little discussion earlier about how to take questions during this question and answer because I have no subject prepared other than the questions, and I did get 16 questions, so I'm very happy about that. But if you care to, while I'm discussing something, if you want to put it in the chat box, it appears to my right here, and between Sheeta and I, we will try to cover your concerns and questions. So I will share my screen. It is in my usual format, so that you should be able to see my screen now. You see the notes in front of me?
Yes, Marty. Yes.
Okay. Just checking to be sure. So we did have a bunch of different questions. I tried to group them in some orderly way, and then I'll go off and show you how to do what my notes are. I will post the notes on the website, so anybody who's interested can just go to our website, naplesmug.com, and see the hard copy. Even though it's on the screen here, sometimes it's easier just to print it off. So the first question was, is there a way to change my Apple ID, not my password? My ID is an old email address that got hacked a number of years ago. Yes, you can do that. And by the way, there's another question later on about using a third-party email client, which I'll also show you. You do this the same way. So appleid.apple.com is the way to do that. So if you go to Safari and open appleid.apple.com, let it gurgle for a little while here. Come on. So always happens when you have a live demo, right? All right, so let's close Safari and we'll do it all again. Let's force quit Safari and do it all again for some reason. Not sure why that's a problem. So appleid.apple.com lets you sign in. Now, in my case, it remembers what I've signed in with before, and it says, do I want to use that one or a different one? Continue with my password. And because the new Catalina integrates with my desktop, I don't have to enter the password for that email address. I simply have to enter the password for my Mac. And then it will recognize me and let me go to my Apple ID. And this is what comes up. My Apple ID is martydorio13@me.com. And if I wanted to change any of this information, first of all, these are all the addresses that I can be reached at through FaceTime or via message. They're my various different email addresses. But if I want to edit, it lets me now change my Apple ID. Now, I have to admit, I have never done this myself. My email address, martydorio@mac.com or me.com, was my old one as a sub to my wife. And that's why I have 13. But let's just, I'm going to do this real time and see what happens. Change the email address to use. So it's letting me change it from one to another, but not to change it to a new one. And that's what I thought the answer was going to be. So you cannot change your Apple ID. Once you have an Apple ID, it's an Apple ID. It's just like any other password that you have. Now there's another question that while I'm here, I'll show you. The other question came up from a user who was on a Samsung phone and wanted to use his iCloud address for his Samsung email. Now, when I use my Outlook is down here. When I use Outlook, if I try to sign on with my iCloud address, it does not let me do that unless I generate an app-specific password. The way you do that is you go to your Outlook, you try to add a new address, a new account, and when you add the new account, if it's an iCloud account, it will reject you, and it will say you cannot do that unless you generate a specific app-specific password. And you do that by going to appleid.com, scroll down to app-specific password, and generate a new password. It will give you a password. You copy that and paste it into your third-party app. And I think that's the answer to the question about the Samsung phone as well. Because for my Apple ID, for my Outlook, which I've moved most of my stuff to now, I have to generate specific passwords. You don't have to do that with Gmail for some reason, and I'm not quite sure why you don't have to do that. So if there are any questions about that before I move on. I've lost my...
Marilyn has a question. Marilyn, can you unmute yourself and ask your question, please?
Yes, I don't have a question, but I do have a comment on changing your ID and your password. Every time, sometimes you end up having to change your password for some weird reason when you're doing something with Apple. But anyway, the bottom line is every time I have had to do something with the ID or with the password, they change the rules on the password, and it's almost impossible to use your old passwords.
Right.
Especially if you had an account for a long time, because they say you have to have a capital and you have to have a character and you have to have a number and all that. So I'm just saying chances are that you're not going to be able to keep the same password.
Yeah, but there are lots of ways to get around that. And one of the easiest ones that I find is adding the characters at the top of the keyboard. So for example, if my regular password is Naples Mug, let's just use a simple one. Naples Mug is my password. Now they say I need a number and a character or a capital. So now I make the capital N, and I put a 1 at the end, and that's Naples Mug 1. Then the next time they're going to say you can't use that again, so I can use Naples 1 $ or Naples 1 ampersand or whatever. I just go across my keyboard so that I can sort of keep track of what it is, but I meet their rules that way.
Yeah,
and if you add a number, and a character, it really helps. It really increases the security a lot.
That's what I have done too, is I've taken the old password and capitalized one of the letters and then put the character somewhere in between where I change from one idea to another in the, and I
Sure.
I keep basically similar. Now that's if you're using one password, that's a whole different thing. But if you're typing in your own password, then that's a good suggestion.
Now, one other thing that you can do, and I didn't see it here, but I will look again. There is a way to make an alias for your, I don't see it here anymore. I thought there was.
You can access that, Marty, if you go inside at iCloud.com and go to Mail and go to Preferences. You can create your aliases there.
Oh, okay. So say that again. Go into
Go iCloud.com and go to Preferences, Mail and Preferences, and you can create your aliases there.
iCloud.com, Mail, and
Preferences. The gear at the bottom, lower left.
Oh, sorry, I got my little
lower
thing.
Left.
Yeah, my thing's in the way, so I can't.
Oh, okay.
I needed to move it. There you go, Preferences. And then
go to Composing. I know it's here somewhere.
Add a
Not
signature,
there.
send from,
Go to accounts. I know it's in here.
it's here somewhere, right? Yeah, there it is. Add
Yeah,
an
there it is.
alias. So I can add an alias here. Instead of saying Marty Dorio 13, I could make it great guy or something. I don't know, just making something up. And then click OK, and that will be an alias for Marty Dorio 13. That's a good suggestion. So whoever sent me that, I think it was Mary, you could do it that way. Got it? iCloud.com, preferences from the corner, a little gear, and then add an alias, and then tell your people, use a vacation rule. Instead of saying I'm out of the country, you can use a vacation rule that says, I have a new email address. Please use it. Please use greatguy at iCloud.com. And now anybody who gets, if I spell that right, of course, anybody who gets this will get an email, will get a new email, will get an email saying, please use my new address. I'm not going to check that because I don't want that to really go out. Okay, so that was question one. And that was in response also to this question, Bob Singer's question. Let me take his email address off of here. Bob's question was, he was told by AppleCare buying his Samsung phone would work. It doesn't. I think the issue is you need an application-specific password. So go in, sign in. When you get your rejection, then go get an app-specific password and put it in there. And hopefully that will work for you. Another question, third question, was about syncing. I have an Apple iPhone, a Mac, and iPad Pro, all current versions, all using iCloud. When I pull something up on my phone, it seems like the passcodes stored in Keychain open, but on the Mac, nothing seems to happen. There are a couple places where this occurs. There's a couple of times this occurs. And usually it's because the settings aren't matched. So for example, on your iPad settings, your name, iCloud, iCloud.com, Keychain, you have to have Keychain turned on because your passcodes are stored in Keychain, and unless you tell it, it won't recognize it. You have to use the same Apple ID on all your devices, turn them on too. You might have to shut down and restart. If you use one password for your syncing, then you have to be sure that they're set to use iCloud or Dropbox and use the same credentials on all of them. On your Mac, pardon me, on your Mac, all of that manifests itself here. When I use my Apple ID, my keychain has to be checked. So in this case, I use Marty Dorio 13 at me. That's my Apple ID. I've signed in, obviously, because it's registering all my choices and all my devices that are registered. And this is another way to check that your devices are using the same, sorry about that, using the same choices, because when you scroll down here, your devices should all be listed. So in my case, my iPad, my iPhone, my other Mac, my Apple ID, my Apple TV in the great room, and my Mac, this device, are all listed here. So you want to be sure when you sign on to your Mac that all these devices are listed, that keychain is checked off, and then verify that the same keychain, same Apple ID and the same check is registered in both places. And that should work. Sometimes you have to shut everything down, sign out of everything, shut everything down, restart, and sign back in again. But eventually they all get synced. I have to admit, Apple iCloud is not working as perfectly as we would all like it. Sometimes I get duplicates. Sometimes they get hokey stuff going on. I blame it all on the latest operating system, but I'm not sure that that's really the answer. But there are a lot of hokey things that are going on with the operating system, so be patient. Questions about syncing?
Mitch, can you unmute yourself and ask your question, please?
Yeah, I've done all those things, so that's the way my system is set up, and I'm the one that hit the question, and the key change just does not pop up or come up on my when I'm using Safari. So I guess in a Safari setting, but I'm going to call Apple on that. The other thing I wanted to just comment on is I am clearly able to go into appleid.apple.com and change my email. I've done it before, and after you presented that you couldn't do it, I went in and there's a drop-down box and I was able to put in another email. So you might want to just Google that and check that out again at some point in time. Thank you.
I'm not sure I just understood what you said. If you go to your Apple ID, as I just did, it lets you change your, when
I go to appleid.apple.com and I sign in with my two-factor authentication, it allowed me to change that Apple ID. And I have two. I have one that I use for all of our purchases, and then I have another one that I use and my wife uses separately.
So
when I come into here,
you're saying you can change this.
Yeah, when I hit edit right there, change, and it allows me to drop in a new one.
How does that happen? Don't you get this continue or cancel?
No, I get a drop down. I get a change, and when I hit change, it opens up and it says enter the email you want to change it to.
Huh. I wonder if that's because I already have two.
Could be, but I can share that screen with you after the meeting if you'd like to see it.
Send it to me. I'd be interested in that.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Okay, the other question that was related to this one, and I'll get back to those others in a minute. A question that was related to this one was about sorry, I lost it here. I thought it was higher up. Was about 10 point. I think with only 15 questions, I could find the question. I'm going, here it is. Question was about 10.15.4. The current version of our operating system is 10.15.4. So there is a 5 out. 4 was issued a little while ago, and there are a number of issues that have surfaced with it, mostly related to Finder. So my advice, since your question is should I update, my advice is don't update yet. Let's wait and see what 10.15.5 comes out. The 15.5 is in beta testing right now, and I'm a beta tester, and it's there are still some funky.
Marty, may I interrupt? This is Eckhart.
Sure.
15.5 is out, and it corrects a very grave, serious problem affecting kernel and other issues. And there's a very strong advice out there to do this. Came out late yesterday, or very briefly, just a few hours ago or so. And I would suggest you take a serious look at that and do upgrade to 10.5, to 10.15.5. But that's a new development, which you were probably not aware of, Marty. But it just happened.
Yeah, well, I do say it just came out, and just was a literal statement. I'm just not happy with the whole Catalina myself. I think everybody knows, or at least most people know, that I've been very reluctant to advise people to upgrade in the first place. Then we upgraded a few months ago, but a lot of these fixes are just because the operating system wasn't working right, and I still have those problems. I still have drag and drop problems. I do a lot of transfers to my external drives, which you see here, and to others, and it really doesn't make me happy. So I would be very cautious if I'm a new user. Wait until we see that 15.5 addresses everything and there are no more complaints, and yes, it's wonderful, and then upgrade. But I wouldn't do it right now. So questions on that before we go on?
Jane Goldberg, can you please unmute yourself and
Hi,
ask your
Jane.
question?
Yes, for those of us who have not upgraded to Catalina, I still am running High Sierra.
Yeah.
Can I update should I update a specific update for High Sierra addressing this kernel issue? Or if I elect to do a software update, is it going to update me to Catalina accidentally? I don't want that to happen. I've just refrained from updating to Catalina, and I'm still happy so far with High Sierra.
Yeah, my personal advice would be wait. I think
Well,
for most of us, High Sierra is fine. You know, that's what my other machine's for, actually, because there are a number of things that didn't work on Catalina that I wish worked, but they don't.
But Gene, if you do see an upgrade to High Sierra, it is okay to go ahead and upgrade to High Sierra. Just
Yes.
don't upgrade to Catalina.
Right.
Right.
I agree with that.
Right. And where's the best place to, like I get a notification every day about a software update, and I always say, remind me tomorrow, because I know it's about Catalina. So can you just review where I can access an update specific to High Sierra where it's not going to upgrade me to Catalina?
Yep. If you're on, if you go to the little Apple ID in the corner here,
Right.
click App Store. Here's where you'll find updates.
App Store.
App Store. It will say App Store.
Okay.
Right there,
Mm-hmm.
and then updates, right? And
Right.
it will show you what you're talking about. The Catalina one is the great big one with the new rocky formation or whatever it is. And the things that have to be updated will be here, and it will show you a High Sierra update or not. So
Okay, thank you.
I wouldn't click anything that says Catalina at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we covered the syncing issues and I think email client. I hope that works for you. If Bob, if it doesn't work for you, let me know and I'll look at it with you. Finder. I learned something when I found the answer to this question. Having configured my Finder favorites list through Finder preferences, is there a way to have pages and numbers as a favorite so I can view all my pages documents separated from the other documents as a whole? I didn't ever know we could do this. So thank you for asking the question. Sorry, I wanted Finder, not Safari. And what I found was I could actually do a pages sort or a numbers sort. And I did them different ways. So let me show you how I did them. The numbers one, I did by typing in the search bar *numbers, and I let it go search this Mac. Let me search just Marty instead of this Mac and make it a little easier. I'll search for *numbers. And I want it to just look in Marty. And it gurgles for a while. It says searching. And of course, when you're doing a live demo, it doesn't want to do what it's supposed to do. Last night it worked fine, and it got me all the numbers listed there.
Sure it did.
You think it did? Startup numbers, save search. Come on.
Try.
All right, let me try the other way. So the other way was from your Finder menu, you do a new smart folder, and new smart folder says, what do you want it to be? And you type in numbers, and it goes and finds anything that's numbers. But of course, what you want is a file that's named numbers. So if you put the dot in front of the numbers, it then goes and finds anything with numbers. And you see I use numbers quite a bit. And that becomes a smart folder over here. It says, do you want to save this smart folder? You say yes, and it adds it. New smart folder, save search. I saved it as numbers so that I could find it. And this is the important one, add to sidebar. And then it says, do I want to replace it? So I've got an error here for some reason. So it replaced it anyway, even though it said it didn't want to. So here's all my numbers spreadsheets with that little favorite smart guy. I did the same thing for pages using the other technique. I labeled it pages.savesearch, and it asked me, do I want to put it on my sidebar? So I never knew you could do that. So thank you, Mary. But I think that'll work for you. And of course, if you do recent, you get everything recent that you've ever wanted to know about. And then you control how many you want to see. I don't limit it, so it just finds everything. But that's how you do favorites on the sidebar.
There's another way to do that also, Marty.
Go ahead.
On your keyboard, press Command F.
Command F.
Command F is
For
a find.
find.
You're right.
Yep.
And actually, it's not showing up everything that it. What it will you normally give you? Give me a new find. Can you give me a new Finder window?
A new Finder window, sure.
Right. All right. Now press Command F. All right.
There it is.
Right.
Okay.
It gives you the pop-up menus where you can put almost any criteria. So for example, if you say kind, if you click that menu, please, kind,
Yep.
Go back to kind, please. If you click that menu, you have a lot of different things that you can search for. But okay, so let's leave that on kind. And if you go to the next menu, you can select other, and it will give you
My little search bar.
right, but there's also another menu that pops up. So do me a favor, go back to other. There's a menu, another menu that pops up that I don't see here. Yeah. So for example, type in .pdf, and it will find all of the PDFs on your system.
Oh yeah, very cool.
And you can
then save it.
You can save it, but stop for a second. You can also plus that plus sign to the right, and you can add more criteria. So you can keep adding as much criteria as you want, and then you can save this, and it will save it to the sidebar. So cool. For example, I have PDFs, PNGs, movie files, all saved in that manner.
All separate.
Right. And I also have it saving like large files to show me any large file that may be over maybe 2 gigabytes, so that I know what the large files are on my computer if I want to delete them. So there's all kinds of criteria you can put in this search function to tell it to save.
So if I wanted to find size, can I go
Yeah.
down to size? No.
Yes, you can. Size, but it is there, and
Gotta
you
be
can
somewhere.
also find invisible files as well. So
Ah,
there are a lot of different criteria there.
very cool.
Okay.
So that's very helpful. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
So Mary, there's 3 or 4 ways to do what you want to do. Let me just add some notes here. Use the find in a new Finder window and set criteria. See the video. Restoring from backup. I think this was Jim's question. You may have seen in the discussion group that I was very successful experience with Apple Care with respect to repairing my MacBook Pro. The only downside was that my desktop came back arranged very differently from when I sent it. Sorry, I didn't check to see if it was recognizable, like alphabetical, whatever. Is there a way to restore the way it looked before without much trouble? I backed up my computer with Time Machine and Super Duper. Jim, I don't know the answer. Jim, I don't know the direct answer. It depends a lot on your system and how you back up your system and your library with Time Machine. If you can, then you can go find those files and restore them. If you don't use the system and the library, some people only use Time Machine. Let me show you here. When you open your Time Machine preferences and you select your disk that you want to back up to, with options, you can exclude certain things. And some people exclude the system files and library so that you're not backing up the entire device. It just depends on whether your system is included or not. If it is, you can go find your desktop array and reconstruct it that way.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah, please.
If he had a super duper backup before he took it to Apple, he can restore it back to the way it looked before he took it to Apple by using super duper and telling it to restore.
I was going to say the same thing. Super duper, I use it a lot. What you can actually do, Jim, you can bring up 2 Finder windows, one with your present arrangement of your files on your laptop, and then on the other Finder window, you show the content of Super Duper, and actually then you can compare various folders, and you can actually exchange from one Finder window to the other. Now, are you only talking about the desktop itself, or everything else? I mean, the document order or application order. In any event, that's what I would do. I would look at 2 Finder windows at the same time, one with Super Duper, the other one with your Pro, and then you can make manual arrangements fairly easily. You just move files around.
Marty?
Go ahead.
Was the question to completely restore the computer the way it was, or to just bring files back?
It was, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
Go ahead, Jim.
No, it was just basically the appearance of it. I didn't lose any files in any way. It's just that they were all sort of in a grid on the right side of my screen without any order, certainly not even close to the order it was in when I sent it out. Now, the upside is that it forced me to arrange those files and put them in folders and so forth and so on, which was long overdue anyway. So it was really not an earth-shattering problem. It just seemed it seemed to me there should be a way to just go back to whatever arrangement superficial look to the desktop that I had before I sent it.
In the Finder, you can set how you want the items on the desktop to be arranged. You can sort them, or you can stack them, or you can, there are different ways that you can do that in the Finder. If you go to Finder and go to, I believe, View Preferences or Options, you can select what you want them to show. If you want them to be grouped, if you want them to sort. So is this what you were talking about?
Yeah, and you know what? I did try, but what I did, I kind of thought it was there somewhere. I went to the View menu, not the File menu.
Okay.
It never occurred to me to go to the File menu. I thought it would be under the View menu.
Well, this is View. This is the View menu. It's View. It was View Options, and then View Options opens this menu, right? So I'm
Okay.
in Finder, View menu, and some things are in Preferences. Like the sidebar and this other stuff appears here. So you can organize your sidebar, and that tells you some things that are on the desktop and some things that aren't. Tags, general. You want me to show all this stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Which way does it open? Advanced, right? So it's really in both places.
Okay, thank you.
The next question was, what does this mean? This is a Catalina type question. The error message comes up: legacy system extension. Existing software on your system loaded an extension called Legacy Developer, which is incompatible with future versions of Mac. It is telling us that in future versions of Mac, the developer MCCI, which makes software that I've listed here, will not work. And they're basically, this is what we ran into. Sorry, I misspelled Catalina there. This is what we ran into with Catalina, because Catalina was a 64-bit system, and it eliminated anything that was 32 bits, which was just the size of the packets that the program operated on. So Apple started giving us notices that the software that you're using isn't going to match future versions. So for Catalina, for example, I had over 24 apps that didn't work. The most notable was Adobe. I had a Adobe Professional, so I can manipulate PDFs and the other programs that went along with Adobe Photoshop and Photoshop Premiere, and none of them worked with a 64-bit version. So that's why I kept my other Mac, which is sitting right here, so that I could use it if I need it, instead of dealing with Catalina.
Can I respond to that just for a second, just quickly? Because I heard that from you and a couple of other people that Adobe's products did not work with 64-bit. That has not been the case. But they have, I just think that's odd that some people have had issues with that. The Adobe products do work with Catalina, all 64-bit, and I don't know why some people were having problems and some people weren't.
Well, it's easy. I'll tell you why.
Why?
We didn't want to upgrade to the Creative Suite because they charged us more money and they put us on subscription. I paid for my desktop versions hundreds of dollars, and I thought that what they did was a slap in the face to all of us who used those programs.
But let me say this, as someone who has done both, the subscription model is actually better. You get more, you can get all of the programs instead of a few. So instead of every 16 months paying $500, $300 to upgrade, it's a better deal. It really is. And I did not want to upgrade to the subscription models either, but it is a better deal. Anyway, back to the presentation. Michael Slider, you have a question. Can you unmute yourself and ask your question, please?
Yes, my question has to do with, I ran into the same thing recently and I tried to find out why it had to do with the VPN software from Intego. And when I contacted Intego, they said, yeah, we know about it, but don't worry about it. It's not going to be for another year, and we'll have another release out before then, so you don't need to be frightened about it. Your software will work just fine. So my question is, isn't there a way to find out a list of all of these softwares? Because mine is not showing the list. I keep getting individual notices, and I thought there was a place that you can go to check on all of the software that was getting ready to be trashed.
Let me see if I remember. No, sorry, I'm in the wrong place. I'm in About This Mac.
System report.
I think System Report. And I think Software. Legacy Software. And no information is found.
Go to Applications. And what it will do, it will go through your computer system and it will list all your applications. It may take some time to do this. It will go and list all your applications, and there will be a column that lists whether or not it is 32-bit or 64-bit. And it will say yes or no. And it's actually hidden over to the right-hand side. So.
If I may, there are two apps that will tell you also whether your apps are 64 or 32-bit, and you can do it either way. One is Go64, and the other one is roaringapps.com. If you want to just go online and check that way. They check your whole computer very quickly.
Go64.com.
Go64.
Yes.
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 And Roaring Apps.
Roaring, R-O-A-R. App.
I just lost you.
Roaringapp.com.
Unmute yourself and ask, and you have to unmute yourself, please.
Oh, I thought I did. I'm sorry.
Is that the way it's spelled? Go64.
Go, Go64.com.
Okay, and Roaring, R-O-A-R-I-G.
Yes.
App.com.
Roaringapps.com.
Okay,
and,
I put them in the chat box.
Yeah, and you can, especially on Go64, you can check it either way. If you're looking for 32-bit or you're looking for just 64-bit, or that you can check your whole computer and they'll divide it up. They're very good.
Yeah, I don't.
And they'll work on. I assume they work on Catalina. They certainly work on Mojave and Prior.
I don't see
Marty?
that 34. I don't see that 32-bit thing that used to be on the right side here.
Yeah.
But each app
Marty?
does show you. Sorry, George, go ahead.
I think Jeff Moore covered that during his Catalina class. And if you go to the website and you look for 2020 class notes, what the member was just referring to of those two apps, I believe he covered in that class.
Okay.
Okay, while you're looking for that, Alan and Barbara, you have a question. Please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes, this is Alan. Back to backups. Again, I keep forgetting. Is Super Duper the one that keeps adding the latest backup to what was there before, and the other one is the one that just replaces replaces what you have, the newest thing with the old one? Is Super Duper the one that keeps adding the latest and keeps the old one?
I can't answer that. Sheeta, can you?
It
Yes.
sounds like you're mixing up Super Duper and Time Machine.
Right.
Both of
That-
Time Machine will, excuse me, Time Machine will add the latest changes to your backup. Super Duper will do one of two things. Super Duper has a free version and a paid version. It is well worth it to buy the Super Duper paid version. It is amazing. Super Duper will, if you buy the free version, or if you just get the free version, when Super Duper backs up your hard drive, it will back up the entire hard drive every single time. You don't want to do that. If you have the paid version, Super Duper will back up your hard drive, and then after that, it will only back up the things that have changed, which would mean going from a 4-hour backup to maybe a 20-minute backup. So
So I understand that now. So it's Time Machine that keeps not only the latest version of my computer, but the old versions as well. Is that right? That's what Time Machine does? It keeps both versions, the old ones and the new ones?
when you say old versions, are you talking about the operating systems?
Well, whatever was on the hard drive before I implemented Time Machine, and I implement Time Machine, does it keep what was on the backup before and now add the latest, or does it replace?
It will keep what was on there before, but it will only go so far, because at some point you won't be able to access all of that old stuff anyway, because as the machines get newer and the operating systems get newer, sometimes or most times it will not be able to access all of that old information.
Okay, but so now I have this hard drive, which has got finite size, and it keeps adding and adding and adding until it fills up that hard drive. And then does it throw away the old ones, or does it stop backing up?
It will start throwing away, it will start deleting old stuff. And
Okay.
for example, my Time Machine drive has 2 years worth of storage on it. At a certain point, it will start deleting some of the old stuff, and which is fine, because some of that old stuff I can't get to anyway, because it has the old operating systems on it, and the new operating systems can't get to it.
So one last, just to clear it up, I don't have to do anything for it to throw that old stuff away. It'll just
No.
throw it away when there's no more room.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right. You're welcome. All right, Marty, go ahead.
Just as a sidelight, we went to the About This Mac, and we went to applications. You can scroll down manually if there's a specific application that you're interested in, and check here that says 32-bit is unsupported. So here's one of those Adobe programs, the Adobe Applications Manager for one of the Photoshop spin-offs that's 32-bit and it's unsupported going forward. So you'll get those kinds of things. You can go through the updated ones now are 64-bit. The old ones were not, and they were cause of the problem for some of us. So just wanted to close that up. You can do it from here. So I think that's what you're running into here. They're just telling you this is coming. Here are the programs that it uses. And you just have to then, you have 3 choices. You can give them up, you can download an update, or you can find an alternative. Let me skip the Zoom ones for a minute here and talk about email. Pardon me. The question was, why isn't the contact listing for me appearing when he types my name in the to line of an email? And then he sent me a bunch of different email addresses, entries in the catalog, in the contacts of application. So let me ask you a question. If you're a computer and you look for the name Marty Dorio, which name do you find? Do you find the one that says Gail and Marty Dorio, Gail and Marty Dorio 13, Gail and Marty Dorio 13, Marty Dorio 13? Do you go to this one which says Marty Dorio and find a different one? Or do you go to this one that says Marty Dorio and find 4 different addresses? Or do you go to this one and find another one still? So this is a computer. A computer can only find the stuff that we tell it. So my suggestion to you and to other people is clean up your address book so that the computer can act like a computer, not like a human being. If you have an address book that has 4 different entries for a person, it's not going to know what to do. And sometimes it'll find this entry, sometimes it'll find that entry. The other place where people where the computer gets misinformation is in our mail application when we look at previous recipients, which is under the window, it says previous recipients. And if you look for previous recipients and you type in the name Marty, you get previous recipients. And again, the computer will look at Marty Dorio and it will try to figure out which one of these it wants to use. So my suggestion is if you're having these kinds of trouble with a person, just select all of these. You pick the top one, you pick the bottom one, and you remove them all from the list. Then when he's looking for Marty, he will then go to your contacts in your address book to find which Marty you want me to use. So I think it's just a matter of cleaning up your address book, make a separate entry for Marty and a separate entry for Gail, and only have one address. And just as a personal note, all my addresses go to my same address book, go to my same email. So when you send me an email, I don't worry about which address it comes to me. So you can use whichever one makes you happy.
Marty?
Yes.
I had 2 separate contacts, one Gail and Marty Dorio, and then a separate one that says Marty Dorio. What the computer did was to go to the first listing, which is Gail and Dorio, and that's why it did not bring up the Marty Dorio contact. So my workaround was to put a space in front of Marty Dorio. That moved it ahead of the Dorio, Gail, and Marty, and now it selects that first.
Or you can just eliminate the 3 different
I could do
entries.
that. I didn't know that they all went to the same email though.
They all do, yeah. So that's a common question. Common question when you get to things like I'm seeing the wrong email in my email when I go to my inbox. I'll get a different definition of who the sender is depending on who the sender is, and a lot of those times it comes from this previous recipients, because if you have a bunch of garbage in previous recipients, it will then look at, particularly in our case where we change email owners but leave the email address the same. Sometimes you got to go clean up. For example, if you use Naples Mug, you'll see secretary at Naples Mug, membership at Naples Mug at Yahoo, Naples Mug test. They're all different kinds of addresses, and people get confused when they see too many different addresses coming out of previous recipients.
So I guess there's no way that you can just say, go to the last one I used.
Alan, don't do that, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Alan.
Okay, well, I'm sorry to break in, but there's no way, I guess, to say, go to the last one I sent it to, not the old ones.
No, not that I know of. You can do that for when you send an email, you can tell it to use the last one. But when you get emails and you type in my name, it's not always the last one. It depends on previous recipients, and it depends on what's in your address book. Okay, we're running out of time here, so let me just cover the last couple quickly. Again, these notes will be posted so you can get whatever you missed by us going through too quickly. One of the questions was, tell us the difference between pairing and syncing. And then after attending the Zoom meeting on iMazing, I don't see why everybody signed up for the application when there's all sorts of stuff that Apple already provides. So let's cover the pairing versus syncing first. Pairing is when you marry two devices together, when you link two devices. Usually that word is used for Bluetooth, like when you pair your car and your phone, you're pairing it. You're telling the computer in the car to look for your phone, and when it does, it links it to your radio or your speakers or your phone functionality of your car. Sometimes we use that for Bluetooth, for speakers. We take a speaker, we tell it to link to our Mac or our iPad so we can communicate from device to device. Pairing is just that. Earphones, you see a lot of us have I have wired headset on, but some of us are using the Apple headsets. So those are paired. Pairing doesn't do anything more than provide a link between the two devices. It's just like your cell phone and the cell phone tower. If there's no cell phone tower around, your cell phone can't be paired with it. It's not recognized. Syncing is when we take content and we tell it, I want the content on both devices to be identical over time. Sometimes it happens really fast, depends on the connection, depends on bandwidth, depends on what you're communicating, what you're sending. Sometimes it takes longer. Those of us who try to sync our pictures and our photos and our videos know it doesn't happen instantaneously. Sometimes it takes time, sometimes it has to be overnight before the things get synced properly. We sync when we go to our system preferences and we click Apple ID, and we're telling it here, use iCloud for my photos and my mail and my contacts and my calendar. And on my iPad or my iPhone, I have those little green sliders that we turn on. And that says, sync this to the cloud, and then on the iPad, sync it so that we sync that information from one to the other. So that's the difference between syncing and pairing. Time Machine syncs once an hour. So back to the question earlier, what about how many copies of this go and how long does it take? Time Machine does it every hour, then every day, then once a week, then once a month until it runs out of space. In my case here, this is my Time Machine backup. I have a line that says backups. Here's my Time Machine. It will go find them. So beginning in October, I have daily or almost daily backups. And then as I get closer here, on June 3rd, I had one at 12 o'clock, one at 1 o'clock, one at 8 o'clock, one at 6 o'clock, one at 5 o'clock, so forth and so on. So daily, hourly, and then weekly, and then monthly. And when you run out of space, this is 6 terabytes, so I've never run out of space yet. When I run out of space, then my backup will be full, and I'll start losing backups. I'll start replacing backups. Why do people want to use iMazing? I use iMazing. I have iMazing right here. There are a number of things that you can't do with Apple provided tools. For example, extract messages, remove iBooks or Kindle content, back up everything wirelessly, not just the important files as Apple specifies. So my suggestion is go review the video that we posted last week, George posted last week from last week's meeting, or last week or 2 weeks ago. At the beginning, he covered why iMazing is so good compared to the tools that Apple provides. And if you're happy with the tools that you have now, I'd say stay with them. Don't worry about it. iMazing is pretty cheap, but not free. So you can always, you can always decide later on. Quickly again, sorry, are there questions about that before we go on? I don't see any over here.
No questions,
Okay.
Marty.
Domains. I've received an email from a reliable source offering me a free custom domain. Right. What is that and why would I want one? Well, if you don't have a need, then don't get it and just put him in junk and let him go away. Personally, I have my own domain. It's called martydorio.com. I use it for my businesses. My family, I bought domains for all my grandkids and my wife, and my sons have their own, of course. So if you ever want your own domain for your own name, so you can have Marty at martydorio.com, for example, or Marty at dorio.us, or Gail at dorio.us, so that people have your own, you have your own identity. I bought them for my grandkids because I don't want anybody stealing my grandkids' names. So all my grandkids have domains that are registered. They're not active. When they get interested and old enough, then I'll give them to them and they can do what they want with them. They'll post their own stuff on their own domain. So that's why you might want your own domain. Many businesses use it. Naples Mug uses their own domain. It's a way to get your own email, so you don't have to worry about Verizon going out of business or AOL being taken over or Google deciding to get out of the Gmail business. You can just have your own. Comcast changing their name. How many remember Roadrunner from Time Warner? So that's
Marty,
why people get their own domains.
you have a question. Is there annual cost to having your own domain?
Yeah, it's very minor though. I think it's about, depending on how unique your name is, it's $10 or $15 a year. Hosting is a couple of hundred, but not outrageous. GoDaddy is the easiest place to find out if you can get your own domain. You just go, let's see if I have GoDaddy up here somewhere. I guess I don't. You go to godaddy.com, godaddy.com, and you find your perfect domain name. So let's see, Alan, I forgot your last name, Alan.
Weinstein.
Weinstein, that's right, E-I-N-S-T-I-N, alanweinstein.com. Let's see if it's there. So it's taken. Somebody already has Alan Weinstein, but we might be able to get it negotiate. They'll start at $70 for a brokerage fee. But let's say you didn't want it to be Alan. Let's say you wanted it to be Al. That's taken. How about just A-W Weinstein? I'm making stuff up here. I don't know if it's available or not. What happened? Went away. So anyway, you can put any Weinstein you want in there. Of course, there are other Allens that are available now. Alan Weinstein XYZ is available for $99 for 99 cents for the first year. AlanWeinstein.club.biz.ted. All these are now available. You know, AlanWeinstein.life, $1.99. Alan M. Weinstein for 11 bucks. Go ahead. Other question.
No, you have 3 minutes.
I have 3 minutes. Okay. Can't locate the general search button on my iPad. Put your finger between the icons and slowly between any icons on any screen and swipe down slowly. Let me see if I can do that. I'm going to reflect. I'm going to try this. Give me my air code. Come on. 2291. So here's my iPad. Here are my icons. Let me swipe this out of the way here. We know we're having a meeting. You put your finger in between here and you swipe down slowly. And your search bar appears at the top. I'm sorry, I have all these notifications coming up. So you just put your finger in the middle of that page, any page, doesn't matter, and swipe down Ah,
Got it.
smart
Thank you,
guy.
Marty.
Got it. Would you explain, maybe demonstrate the command structure, how to migrate videos from YouTube to your smart TV? I don't know if I can do this from here. Let me try. If I screen mirror, so this is my iPad screen, right? And now I want to show, yeah, oh, there it is. So this is a video that's on my iPad now, and I want to show it. I don't know, yeah, that's not gonna appear. Okay, so if I wanted to show this now, what I do is I go to the upper right-hand corner of my screen. Let me see if you can see it this way. I go to the upper right-hand corner of my screen and I get my command center. And right now I'm displaying this on my Mac, but it's exactly the same procedure to display this on my, my Apple TV. So on my Apple TV, I see this Great Room Apple TV, and I would just touch that and I would say, I want the screen to go to my Apple TV. It checks, and now that is displaying on my Apple TV in the other room. It's very straightforward. There's no command structure. There's no complication. Anything you're showing on your screen will appear on your Apple TV. You have to have it turned on, of course. You have to have your TV turned on and your iPad on whatever it is you want to show.
All right, Marty, it's 12:46.
Okay, 12:46. The other questions, I have the answers here, and I'll post them on the website for you. Thank you all for coming today. I appreciate it. 63 people. I think we had 69 at the beginning, so we only lost 6. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.
Marty, thank you very much. Great meeting.
You're welcome.
And thanks everybody for attending. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week.